I'm going to share with you the 5 lessons I learned from over 100 hours spent with the top fatherhood researchers in the whole country, from Yale, UConn, the University of Maryland, and beyond. It's going to completely change how your kids experience you as a dad. Now, these lessons, they help me fix my broken relationship with the 2 most important people in my life, my 2 daughters. And these aren't my opinions. These come directly from the doctors and professors who have dedicated their lives to studying what makes a great father. So if you're thinking, my situation is different, trust me, it's not. I'll even break down the one lesson that most dads that they don't find out until it's too late and give you something that you can do about it today. Don't sleep on this, because every day that you don't know these lessons is another day that your kids are experiencing a version of you that you didn't intend to show them. That's why I'm going to give you the flex on, flex off framework. It's a simple free system that ties all these together and gives dads a pathway to work on themselves as parents, even when they're with their kids and when they're without their kids. So without further explanation, here are the 5 lessons I've learned from the top fatherhood experts in the whole country that changed everything that I do and how I show up as a dad. Starting with lesson 1, probably my favorite, the meta messages. Now, your kids aren't hearing your words, they're actually reading everything that you actually do. And what your actions say is louder than anything that comes out of your mouth. So why is this important? Because most dads, they think that being present means just being in the room. But Dr. Kari Adamson's professor at UConn, whose principal research focuses on fathering, she explains that every interaction you have with your kids, it sends 2 messages simultaneously. Now, the words you say and the meta message underneath it. The meta message is what your kid actually walks away believing about themselves and their relationship with you. So let me show you guys and give you the easiest explanation of this whole meta message thing that I love that Dr. Kari Adamson's taught me. So basically, imagine this, right? Imagine you're on a date and you're on the date with a person and you're talking to them. It's like, hey, so nice to finally meet you. Tell me about yourself. And the person the whole time is just like, oh, yeah, no, I grew up in New York, but you're talking, right? And you're engaging and the person's like, oh, no, right? It doesn't feel good, right? It just doesn't feel good. You know, for me, I had the silver lining blessing that my oldest daughter called me out on being on my technologies and realizing this. And through her calling me out and me kind of taking a step back, being a little defensive at first, taking a step back and realizing something that I was doing that I had to change, and learning from Dr. Kari Adamson's, I realized it's just not a good feeling. It's just not a good feeling when the person that you're engaging with, like the example of being on your phone, you would never go on a second date with someone if the whole time they were just, on their phone. And how many of us parents, myself included, actually do that? They sit with their kids, they're not really paying attention. The kids are trying to talk to us. Because remember, guys, presence to a kid is quality time. It's not just being there physically. I always hear Gary Vee saying, attention. That's all kids want, but they want your attention when you're there with them. So it took a pretty hard moment with my daughter, and then learning, from Dr. Kari Adamson's what an actual meta message is, and then I was doing it wrong. But I can tell you, when I stopped being defensive and I kind of leaned into doing the right thing, the relationship with my kids certainly improved. So if this is something that you want to work on, just like I'm still working on it, to me, it's a 2-step process. Step 1, whether you are married and you're coming home from work and still seeing your kids, and it's obviously planned out. Whether you're divorced and you have a certain custody schedule, maybe it's every other week, maybe it's the 5-2-5, maybe it's every other weekend and one day during the week. If you're a divorced dad and you're solo dadding, you know exactly when you'll see your kids. Or if you are what we call a flex dad, which is your stepfather, adoptive father, or a foster father, you still just think, right? No matter what father you are specifically, think of the next time you're going to see your kids. That's the first thing. Because number 2, you're going to plan out the next time you're going to see your kids. What can you do to hyper focus on putting your technology away? You have to have the hyper realization that the meta message of being on your phone is not good for kids, makes them feel really crappy, and you're doing a horrible job giving them the attention they need when you're there and you're actually present. But the 1-2 process is just ultimately, when are you going to see your kids, depending on your circumstance, and what are you going to do, and kind of map out how you're going to put away your technology. So for me, as an example, I know Wednesdays, if I have my kids at night, say the sitter has them, brought them home, I come home from work, just as an example, or if they're at the sports field, and I go and I meet at the sports field, or if I'm even going to get them at their school, in their after school, I map out, all right, specifically, where is it that I'm going to turn off my technology and put it away? Otherwise, I'm the biggest violator of using technologies. In my head, I kind of see it, where I map out when I'm going to put it away, just to ensure that when I do actually see them, that I'm able to greet them, meet them where they are, really give them the attention that they need, because otherwise, I've been the biggest violator just being on this technology thing, and it's really just not fair to them. So now that you understand what your kids are actually even seeing from you, we're now going to get into why society made it so hard for dads to even know this in the first place. Now this brings us to lesson 2. Now society, it puts us dads in a box. Now the real reason most dads feel like the backup parent isn't because they are, it's because society spent decades accidentally telling them that they were. So why is this important? Because Dr. Natasha Cabrera, professor at the University of Maryland, an amazing person, she revealed to me that parenting research was built almost exclusively around moms, not intentionally, but because moms were simply easier to access. Now the result was science of parenting that left dads pretty much out completely. And when dads were included, it was only measuring one thing. Are they paying? That one-dimensional view quietly became the cultural story of what a dad is supposed to be. Now take, for instance, dieting. Now there's so much convo right now around peptides, but to really lose weight the healthiest way, you really have to know there's 3 body types, which one are you, and then a diet is geared off of that. Now, the same thing is with the parenting side, right? There's 2 parents, but all the research is geared towards one. So of course, the other parent type feels lost. There's nothing really around them as a parent. Now imagine all the weight loss stuff is geared towards one body type, not the 3. You're obviously, if you're body type number 2, body type number 3, you're gonna struggle to lose weight. So of course dads are struggling because all the research around parenting is geared towards one of the 2 parent sets. So just like in the weight loss category, if all the research was geared on one specific body type, the other 2 would suffer. So of course dads are feeling how they feel because the research, it's just not been done on the dad side at scale. So myself and many dads that I speak with, it's how do we kind of work through this being the backup parent and kind of moving that agenda forward and changing the narrative. So feeling like the backup parent is definitely something that I've struggled with, and I know a lot of dads that I talk to struggle with. How is it something that we can actually work on? So the first thing you could do is just understand that it does exist. That again, as we discussed, all the research is pointing to the one parent. So there's gonna be a little bit of work that us dads have to do to kind of work on ourselves as dads. Now, the second thing is just understand we don't have to be the backup parent. So if we're gonna be on the even keel as the mom, there's so many things for motherhood and how to improve on yourself as a mom. So to improve on yourself as a dad, what's the best thing to do? Take an assessment, see where you stand today. What are the things you're doing great as a dad? What are the things you need to work on? There's no batting 1,000, nobody's perfect. There are always things we as dads collectively can work on. So for myself, I created the anchor assessment through DadderUp, and it showed me specifically, I had to work on my presence and I had to work on my strength. 2 things as a dad that need a little bit of work for myself. So now that you know that you don't have to be a backseat driver anymore, I wanna give you something that actually helps you as a dad. So whether you have your kids today or you don't, you spent years feeling like you're not doing enough as a dad. And these experts, they spent decades figuring out exactly why and what to do about it in both situations, believe it or not. So I put together something that I use. It's called the Flex On, Flex Off framework. It's a free workbook. It's gonna give you a simple system to help you show up better as a dad, whether your kids are sitting right next to you or miles away. Now the link's in the description. Grab it for free right now, and we'll talk more about it and how to use it before this video ends. Now that you understand why society has put you in a box and you really want to change how your kids experience you, we're going to go into presence and what it actually does to your kid's brain. So lesson 3, the power of presence. Now when a dad shows up, and I mean really shows up, it does something to a child that nobody else on earth can replicate, not even a mom. So why is this important? Dr. Diane Kelly from Adelphi University, such an amazing person. She explained that a mother and a father give completely different psychological gifts to a child. Mom is the secure base. She holds the child close, makes them feel safe and protected, but dad hoists the child on his shoulders and shows them the world they're capable of conquering. So both are necessary. But what dad gives is uniquely his. When he's absent or checked out, nobody else can fill that specific gap. So Dr. Kelly, when I spoke with her, she told me something. And honestly, I haven't been able to get it out of my head, so I want to read it to you guys. She said, the father hoists the child on his shoulders to let the child see the world he will lead them into. If he has nothing but his dreams, then all he can give his child is his dreams. The best analogy, we used to watch The Lion King. The mom gave a different energy than the dad did. The mom was super warm, loving, really loved on Simba. But the dad, right, Simba's out there, they're roughhousing, they're rough playing, which is actually very healthy for the kid. The way the dad loves might be a little bit more conditional, but it was super effective and it's super necessary in raising children. And Dr. Diane Kelly and all the research shows how important this is. And it just makes me think the difference of the feminine energy and the masculine energy. Unfortunately, in society right now, there's so many broken homes, there's so many, single mom, households where the child just experiences the feminine energy, whether it's a son or a daughter, but there's such an importance for the dads, even if for whatever reason they got a divorce, to make sure they're around and they have the quality time and they're super present. There's a difference for a child developmentally with the masculine and the feminine energy. As much as there's so much pressure put on moms for caretaking and the feminine energy, the masculine energy is just as important. So dads, if this is something that you want to work on, I could tell you I struggle with this and I try to work on it every day that I have my kids. I have a 3-step process called the EFM, and it's real simple. So it starts E, with your eyes. So just make sure that you're making eye contact with your kids. That's the whole thing with presence. You can't really be there, engaged, attentive, if you're not making eye contact. So it starts with your eyes. The F part is your facial expression. Are you smiling? Are you looking like you're down? Are you coming across like you're sad? Because your kids, they see everything, they feel everything. But sometimes communication and presence isn't just direct, it's indirect. So just work on some of your facial expressions. At least I do myself, I struggle with it. And then M is the mouth, meaning communication. So when you communicate, you have to work on that with your kids, how you communicate from a presence perspective by asking open-ended questions. How many times you come home after a long day, dads, and your kids are there, hey, Billy, how was your day at school? Great, Dad. All right, cool. That's not really doing the best job from a presence perspective. So first, the eye contact. Then you want to come in, obviously, exuding good energies, right? Good masculine energy. The third thing is the mouth. Make sure when you communicate, ask open-ended questions. If they don't lean into the question, ask more prying questions, just because it's one of the most important things from a presence perspective. And by using these 3 things, I promise you, you'll improve or better yourself from a presence perspective with your kids. So now that you understand all things related to presence, we're now going to go into the relationship you have with their co-parent and how that's really shaping your relationship with your kid. This brings us to lesson number 4, the parenting triangle, meaning your relationship with the co-parent, how it's not separate from your parenting, believe it or not. It is your parenting. And the traffic inside the triangle that's created, it affects your child more than anything else that you do. So why is it important? Dr. Kyle Pruitt, founder of the Yale Conference on Fatherhood, he introduces the idea that every family operates as a triangle. Mom at one point, dad at the other, the child at the third. And most dads think that their relationship with their kid is just a straight line. It's just them and the kid. But Dr. Pruitt says the most important dynamic isn't on the outside of the triangle, it's the traffic happening inside it. How the dad treats mom directly shapes how mom relates to the baby. How the baby's doing puts pressure on both of the parents. Everything is connected. So think of it like a 3-wheel ATV. So if you're out there, one of my goals is to buy a lake house. And one day I'll have these 3-wheeled ATVs with me and my family. But imagine you're out there, and you're driving it around. If the front of the 3, right, think of a triangle, it's kind of in reverse, the front wheel gets a flat, you're gonna fly over the handlebars. If you're going crazy, you're driving and the back left gets a flat, you're falling backwards. The same thing in the back right gets an aggressive flat tire, you're falling backwards to the right. Now the same thing is with the 3 parents. If one of the 3 is kind of out of some or is experiencing friction or is lacking cohesion, the other 2 are going to struggle hardcore. So if this makes sense to you, this is something that you want to work on, it makes sense to me, something that I try to work on every day. Just think of the 3 parts of the triangle and what you can do today to better each part. So number 1, say start with the co-parent. What can you do today to help them to better their experience as a parent? As a co-parent, maybe it's the communication. Maybe you struggle with how you communicate. Maybe you're super stressed out and you typically are engaging what we call violent communication. Use statements, you're very attacking or condescending. So you can work on nonviolent communication, expressing how you feel a little bit better, because that'll improve the triangle and the flow within it. Or you could work on yourself with the baby. What can you do to help a little bit more with the child, which will help the other parties in the triangle? Most important, and sometimes I think us guys, we forget this, the third piece is yourself. What can you do to work on yourself today? Meaning, how are you from a job perspective? Are you employed, or is it something that's really required for the family? Because there's a lot of financial pressure that can be put on just the mom that affects her and the baby if you're unemployed, or at least not motivated to get out there and help the house financially, or maybe physically. Maybe you're not doing the best, and I'm not saying how much you bench press or your 6-pack abs. Maybe you're just not that healthy. Maybe you smoke, maybe you drink, maybe you eat too much, maybe you're a little bit overweight, so unfortunately you can't kind of get in there and help out the baby. That's very important. So there's many things you can do to work on yourself, believe it or not. And ironically, if you work on yourself, as much as you think you're directly working on yourself, indirectly you're working on the co-parent and the kid, and the whole triangle will flow better. So if you really want to work on this for yourself, just understand there are 3 important pieces. And just like you might want to be a better partner, or you might want to be a better father, you have to work on yourself as well. It's just as important. So now they understand in the triangle how each relationship affects the child. Now we're going to go into working on the most important person in the triangle. And who that is, it might surprise you. And this brings us to lesson 5. Validation, reassurance, and reframing failure. So the most important person in that triangle we just talked about, shocker, it's you. It's you, Dad. And the reason most dads are running on empty, it's not because they don't care enough. It's because nobody ever told them that it's okay to have needs and need something too. So why is this important? Dr. Pullman, a marriage and family therapist with 15 years of clinical experience, he makes something crystal clear, that when a dad is carrying unprocessed anger, guilt, or shame, that it doesn't stay inside him, it leaks. His kids feel it, they absorb it, and they pull away from it. Taking care of your own emotional health, guys, it's not selfish. It's the single most direct investment that you can make in your relationship with your kids. So if you don't work on yourself, how you show up for your kids may not show up in the best way possible, and that could affect them developmentally. It could affect your relationship. Like take for me, for instance, so many people talk about if you had a hard day at work or you're frustrated, dads typically have tempers, they snap on their kids, or they lose their cool, or they have no patience. For me, I actually experience different things. So if you get a divorce, right, and say in my case as a divorced dad, with my kids, say you have to drop them off on Monday or a Sunday or whatever it is, I internalize that. I really, really, really wanted kids. And unfortunately now I get to see them a portion of the time. And of course I work on the quality of time, it's not the quantity. The research has shown that. But regardless, when I'm not with them, I really miss them. So I think that I could do a better job of when I drop them off, of not being, you call it sad Sam, right? So that's something that I caught about myself was when I was dropping them off to their moms, it's brutal, right? You drop them off, they walk to the door, you roll down the window, you wave. I mean, literally, my dad did this with me when I was in my teens. I never wanted to do this for my kids, and here I am doing the same thing, waving them off. But I realized that this is something for sure that I could work on. And when I started working on it with a specific strategy, it definitely helped my headspace, and it helped me show up better for my kids. Now, the way that I do this is actually 3 things. And this is something that I've kind of created for myself, and I want to offer for you guys. The first thing is validation. So all dads have validation needs. Newsflash, men of the world, us men, we're human beings, right? We grew up, man up, don't have feelings. Feelings are for girls, which is so crazy that, society has said that. But that's how we grew up, and that's what we've kind of normalized. But unfortunately, especially in the age of divorce, where so many guys are getting divorces, there's so many feelings that us dads feel. The first step is just having those feelings validated. Yes, Andrew, it sucks dropping your kids off and having to say goodbye. Yes, Bill, the fact that you now get to see your kids half the time, that really sucks. I empathize for you. It stinks, right? Yes, Tommy, you didn't marry their mom, have 3 amazing kids, to then get a divorce and only see them from a limited time perspective. That was not what you set out to do. I get it. But it just feels good. It feels better as a human being, understanding that what you're going through and how you feel, that it makes sense to people, right? So that's the first step, is that I got validation, that what I'm going through, feeling how I did, the feelings of frustration and sadness and all that stuff, like going through that whole cycle, it makes sense. I started to feel better. That was the first thing. The second thing is reassurance. Everyone, all human beings need reassurance that this is what you're going through, this is how you feel, which makes sense, right? Validation. The reassurance is, hey, it's all good. It's the quality of time, not the quantity. It's been proven by science. We're big believers in that at DadderUp, that if you just, the time you have them, say half the time, if you really lean into them, if you're super present, put away your technologies, have patience, have the strength to keep up with them and hang out with them, or I call it bro it out with them. If you're a great leader and you're passing on generational stuff to them, which we call legacy, guess what? You'll have an amazing experience with your kids. So unfortunately, yes, maybe you got a divorce, just an example. Or if you're married, maybe you go away a lot for work and you're missing out on them at times. Or, if you're now a stepdad, guess what? Being a stepdad is hard. Coming into someone's life late in the game, and technically you're not the biological dad, the whole stigma around that, it's very difficult. Again, that's all validation. So the reassurance is, if you lean into it and work on it every single day, not only will your relationship with them improve, you can actually enjoy the process of all the quality time you get. But that's the second thing. The third thing is the redefining feelings of failure, right? So for me, what I did was, once I got the validation that I needed, this is tough, made me feel better. Then I got the reassurance I needed, if I keep working on myself as a dad, every day, more present, more patient, having better strength and vitality to hang out with them, the relationship will improve. The third thing was redefining what failure was. So for me, I'm just so hard on myself. I'm hard on myself in business. So of course that correlates to being a dad. Getting a divorce, you're a failure. You've ruined their life, all the terrible head speak, right? You ruined their lives. That's it. They're going to grow up and hate you. So what I did was took a step back and I said, you know what, Andrew? Failure is not getting a divorce. Failure is stopping, just not trying. So it's not the thing or the moment, it's just the decision that you make every day. Are you just gonna quit? So for me, it was, I'm not a failure. I show up every day, whether I'm with them or not. I work on myself as a dad, whether I'm with them or not. And by doing that, I'm actually not a failure. If I just decided, oh my God, whatever happened, I'm not gonna see them all that much, that's it. It is what it is, right? And when I redefine what failure actually means for myself, it completely changed my headspace and my relationship with my kids improved just because I showed up better, especially when I was there with them physically. So we have 5 researchers and 5 core lessons from hundreds of hours of study. And they all point back to the one thing. The dads who change their kids' lives aren't the ones who have it all figured out. They're the ones who showed up intentionally every single day, whether their kids were with them or not. And that's exactly what the Flex On, Flex Off framework is built around. Flex On is everything you do when you're with your kids. The presence, the intentionality, the engagement. Now, Flex Off is what you do when you're not with them, whether you're married, divorced, or whatever it is. The self-reflection, the emotional work, the preparation, both matter equally, and you can't have one without the other. And for the first time, you now have a system for both. So every single day, the framework starts with 3 questions. Question 1, are you with your kids today or not? That determines whether you're on Flex On or Flex Off mode. Now, question 2, across the 5 pillars of fatherhood, where do you feel you're struggling the most today? That tells you exactly what you should focus your energy on. And question number 3, how much time do you actually have to work on this? Because whether you have 5 minutes or an hour, there's always something in the framework for you to do based on the day. Based on your answers, the workbook gives you 10 specific actions for each pillar. 10 flex on activities for when your kids are with you, and 10 flex off activities for when they're not. Plus a journal section where you can log your daily flex and track your progress over time. The link to download the Flex On, Flex Off workbook is in the description below, guys, and it costs you nothing. It takes 5 minutes a day. It's the exact system that ties every single lesson from this video into one simple daily habit. Now grab it right now and start tonight. Now, if you want to take all 5 of these lessons and apply it to your life so you can improve yourself as a dad and the relationship that you have with your child, you need to create a system on how to do that. So if you want a system that will help you stay disciplined as a dad and actually help you become the best dad daily, click here and watch the next video. This dad discipline routine that changed me.